Hi, it's Lauren with LaurenTeachesFlute.com and welcome to today's tutorial. So in today's video we're going to be talking about how to hold a note for a longer amount of time on the flute, and this is part 2 to the breathing basics series. So if you missed part 1 you can check it out here, and I will also link it in the description below. In part 1 we talked about how to have a healthy standing posture to prepare to breathe, and also how to take a full inhalation. So again, in today's video we're going to talk about how to hold a note for a longer amount of time on the flute, and this video will mainly be geared towards beginners, but hopefully there will be helpful information for all levels of flute playing. So let's get into it. So first I'd like to go over 4 steps that we need to kind of go through as we are exhaling in a slow and controlled way. So after we take that full inhalation, we'll begin to exhale, and there's kind of 4 things you want to think about, or 4 steps that just happen as you're doing this. So here they are. So step number 1 is to stay expanded for as long as possible. So when you just begin, you'll be expanded like this, and you'll just stay expanded for as long as you can. Much like if you open the little cap to let out the air in a car tire, the car tire isn't just going to deflate, it's going to stay expanded for a period of time. So you want to kind of simulate this in the beginning when you begin to exhale. Step number 2 is to gradually, when you can no longer stay expanded, gradually engage the abs so you can maintain the same support as you were using when you were staying expanded. So it's kind of a natural thing that happens, kind of as if like I'm talking and not taking a breath. My abs just naturally get firmer so I can keep my voice going like that. So it should feel rather natural to begin to engage the abs when you need to do that. Step number 3 is to, all the while this is happening, keep the rib cage lifted. It's a good experiment to play with a collapsed chest versus playing the flute with an expanded open rib cage. You'll probably notice you are able to have a more stable, solid sound like this, and it's also more resonant when we're playing with our rib cage lifted. So just keep this in mind as you're exhaling. And then step number 4 is to, if needed, and it's not always needed to do this, but if it's needed, to let out that last little bit of air in the rib cage, in the lungs. Okay, so that's step 4. So really quickly recap: step 1, stay expanded for as long as possible. Step 2, gradually engage the abs. Step 3, keep the chest rib cage lifted. And step 4, let that last little bit of air out of the lungs at the end if needed. If you're wanting to use every last bit of air. So before we actually take this to the flute and work on this, I think it's important or helpful to simulate doing this through other ways to get the feeling of it, so we don't have to focus on as much. We're just focusing on these 4 steps, whereas when we take it to the flute, we're focusing on the embouchure, the good tone, all that stuff put together. So let's simulate it first. So first we're going to do this with S air. So I've talked about S air before, but I'll talk about it again. Basically it is when you let out the air like this. So that resistance with the S sound is kind of like the resistance you will use when you position the embouchure for playing the flute. So it's just kind of a different way of creating resistance. So I'll go ahead and do this. I'll do 4 count inhalation, and I'm going to set my metronome to quarter note equals 60. So I'll do a 4-count inhalation, I'll hold for 2 counts, and then I'll exhale for 16 counts. And I'm going to go ahead and go through all 4 steps, although you can probably do much longer than 16 counts. I'm just going to do this for the purpose of this video. I'm going to keep it short, so I'm going to try to go through all 4 steps that I just went over in the 16 counts. You can follow along, or you can go as long as you can. So, ready? Go. Good, so I tried to let out my air within 16 counts, but you can go as long as you can. Don't feel like you have to use your air up in 16 counts. It's really to see how long you can go. So at the end, when I was letting that last little bit of air out of my rib cage, or my lungs, you notice that I didn't go back, like I didn't start leaning back when I was running out of air, but I'm trying to keep the good healthy posture we talked about in the first video for as long as possible. So I'm trying to keep my rib cage lifted for as long as possible, but naturally, as I let that last little bit of air out, it is not going to be as open and as expanded, obviously. So just be aware of that. Keep a good healthy posture all the way to the very end when you're doing that. So other ways you can do this to make it more like playing the flute is you can form your flute embouchure, aim a column of air at your finger, a very direct, focused, minimal amount of air. You're not going to spill all your air when you do this. You're going to let it out very slow and controlled. You're going to save your air. So it looks something like this. Like that. And you can do that same exercise we just did with S air and see how long you can go, just aiming a stream of air on the fingertip. And finally, we can pick up the flute and you can actually do the same thing on the tube, like so, and kind of simulate it even more closely. And then when you're ready, after you go through these 4 steps, by using those other methods, and when you feel comfortable with it, then we can go to the flute. So I will say again, remember to save your air when you're doing this. Use as little air as possible to maintain a smooth, steady sound. And then lastly, before I get into the actual flute playing, I will say that the softer you can play, the longer you're going to be able to hold the note. Now, don't worry so much about playing softly if you're not the most experienced with that. I wouldn't focus on that too much, but I will cover the basics of doing that really quickly right now, but I'll talk more about it in another video. So basically, when you play soft, you want your lips to come forward and you want to have a small aperture, aim the air across, and use slower, cooler air kind of thing. So it'll look like this. And when you're playing loud, it'll look kind of like this. I'll drop my jaw, I'll aim my air down, I'll use fast, warm air. Okay? So hopefully you can see the difference there. Again, if you're just starting out, don't worry about this too much. Just do the best you can to use as little air as possible while maintaining a smooth, steady tone. Okay, so now we're going to do this exercise with the metronome, and I'll set the metronome to quarter note equals 60, and we'll do 4 counts in, 2 counts hold, and I'm going to go ahead and just play a B natural in the staff when I do this exercise, and I'm going to go ahead and hold the note for 20 counts. And this number, it depends on what level you're at. If you've been playing for a while, you can go a lot longer than 20 counts. You can go up to 45 counts, maybe 50 counts, maybe 55 seconds. But for the purpose of this video, to keep things moving along, I will do 20, and I will take a deep breath and preserve my air for as long as I can. So here we go. Ready, go. Okay, so that's 20 counts. So I was going through the steps and I stayed expanded for a while, and I was just starting to engage my abs. So you can kind of prolong the period you stay expanded. You can see how long you can go just staying on step 1 without having to engage the abs. You can go quite a while in step 1. But yeah, so if you're starting out, maybe it's 5 counts today, and that's totally fine. I would say practice this exercise for a few minutes at the beginning of your practice every day. Not very long, maybe just a few minutes. And just find your number. Maybe your number today is 5 counts. Maybe next week you can get it up to 7 or 8. Maybe the week after that you can get it up to 10, and so on and so forth, and just see how far you can go and get up to 20, 30, one day, 40, 50, and see how long you can kind of maintain your air. And again, the softer you can play, the longer you can go, and you don't have to play or focus on playing super soft at the very beginning. Just do the best you can and take your time and maintain good playing posture and playing habits while you're doing all this. So before I end this video, I want to touch briefly on some of the variations, the ways we can exhale our air. There's so many ways, it's not even funny. But I would recommend, if you're interested in learning about all of that, to check out this book, The Art of Playing the Flute by Roger Mather. This has so much information on all of that stuff. Basically, he talks about placing the air. So if you are playing high notes, he talks about staying expanded in the rib cage for as long as possible during those notes. But if you're playing lower notes, to experiment with exhaling out of the lungs first and keeping your reserve air in the abdominal area. So you can experiment around with that. That's also called contrary breathing. So you can experiment with contrary breathing, but that's not what we went over in this video today because I want to keep it short. And it's still not very short. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more videos like this one. So thank you again for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.